Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Is it a common occurrence at your house where 3 or more family members settle down onto your sofas at home on a Friday evening and try to figure out which movie to watch on an OTT app, that is, an over-the-top app? All of you are trying to figure out some movie or the other, you're not in agreement, nothing great is on offer. At the end of half an hour, all of you decide it's too late to start watching a movie that will take 2.5 hours from then on and say, let's just end this, and all of you go to sleep. Looks like you're not alone. Across the world, consumers are having this problem. Let's dive a bit deep to find out why this is so. Earlier this year, Accenture put out a survey called Reinvent for Growth that dwelt especially on this phenomenon, but also other accessorial trends that came up during the survey on the OTT streaming sector. The survey results came out in Jan, so it wasn't exactly like yesterday, but it's still worth dwelling upon because much of the media does not seem to have made a big noise about this. The survey was conducted with 6,000 consumers participating across 10 markets, the US and India included, which showed that these largest consumer markets across the world, 72% of consumers had trouble picking what they wanted to watch quickly, and 26% of them actually spent more than 10 minutes trying to make a choice. The numbers that we just saw were from a consumer's perspective. But from the point of view of companies too, streaming does not seem to have delivered the results that it once promised. Accenture says that there are two key factors that have contributed to this decline. One is the distinct shift in business models where revenue seems to have supplanted content. And second, of course, is the poor experience that consumers seem to have had with this kind of media. Let's digress a bit and look at what has been happening in the West specifically. And let's take Netflix as an example. Till the end of 2021, the company could do no wrong in the eyes of both consumers and investors. But in the early months of 2022, a sharp stock correction took place, bringing into question, even if only temporarily, its business model and returns potential. In April 2022, a sister publication, Business Line, said in an article that the company, Netflix, had a poor couple of quarters followed by a massive 73% correction in its stock price from the all-time high of $700 it had touched in November 2021. The decline in subscriber count was attributed to inflation pinching pockets as well as to the ordinary selections available across OTT apps in the US market at about that time. Since then, the stock has recovered moderately. After all, as Netflix itself had pointed out as in early 2022, the total addressable market was still large enough for streaming apps to go after. It had said in an earnings call in about that time, again early 2022, that out of the total TV time taken up by consumers in the US, streaming apps only accounted for 29% of that time. Now, what do consumers want? Let's return to the Accenture survey. More than 9 in 10 consumers in India, that is 95%, want an all-in-one platform to simplify their entertainment experiences with video streaming, fantasy sports, social media, e-commerce, and more. They are tired of entering their basic profile information and preferences across multiple platforms and would actually pay to have a service that shares such info across all platforms. Almost 3 in 4, or 72% consumers, now report frustration at finding something to watch. That's 6 percentage points higher than last year, says Accenture. What is it that consumers don't want? Other findings from the report further highlight the need for media organizations to reconsider their operational and content strategies, says Accenture. Here's some more data. 41% of consumers in India unsubscribed from at least one of the top 5 streaming video-on-demand services in the last 12 months. And 42% said that they plan to cut one or more in the next 12 months. About 62% in India reported frustration at finding something to watch. 77% said they are overwhelmed by the number of streaming services to choose from, with 30% saying it can take them more than 10 minutes to settle on a streaming choice. And this is up from 17% only last year. The evolution of OTT apps has seen another interesting milestone. Prior to the pandemic, apparently, star presence in a movie was a big draw for video streaming companies. But in the post-pandemic world, treatment of a story and performances have gained currency. With an evolved audience, media companies must also invest in better stories and put greater emphasis on co-creating stories, says Neeraj Sharma of Accenture in India. If inflation stays elevated in the coming months and if the global economic environment gets any more gloomy, then it will be easy for consumers to decide to cut back on some discretionary spending, such as on subscription to streaming apps. And like we saw just a little earlier, many intend to do just that. Sharing of accounts is another bane the industry has to contend with. You may have done this yourself, if only to sample a particular selection or a movie from a friend's account. But as a whole, this is a headache for the industry. An article at cordcutting.com refers to a survey in which it found that streaming platforms are still missing out on an estimated $2.3 billion in subscription fees in the US from those consumers who don't use their own accounts, but would actually pay for one if they had to. In the Indian context too, price sensitivity is a huge issue. In its management review newsletter in early 2021, the Mumbai Educational Trust indicated that the Indian OTT market was expanding in such a way as to become the 6th largest by 2024. But even then, consumers' willingness to pay for subscriptions had not risen in tandem. In an article, the MET said, its studies suggest that there are still some people who borrow someone else's login to stream movies and TV. This, it said, was a show of resistance from those who cannot afford to pay for multiple streaming services to access exclusive content. Otherwise, the viewers go down the immoral path of piracy. To help counter this, the MET says it came up with a suggestion of WAWS, meaning watch ads, watch shows. Here, the OTT platform would allow consumers to watch a certain number of ads and give them points, and these points can be used to watch a certain number of episodes of a series or a certain movie for free by the consumers. But guess what? The MET found in its own survey that many of the respondents were not open to watching ads. So it does look like OTT streaming apps have a tough fight on their hands before they figure out how to give what the consumer wants, but in a profitable fashion. So what do you think should OTT streaming apps be doing to rake in the moolah? Give us your ideas in the comment section below. And till we meet again, have a lovely week ahead.